All right, everybody, welcome back to the Glass Less Traveled livecast. My name is Mike Verivi. I am a certified bourbon steward and founder of the Fox Valley Whiskey Society. We're going to explore and introduce you to craft distilleries, microbreweries, industry insiders, and professional imbibers to give you the inside scoop on the things you need to be drinking. If you like where you're watching and want to help us expand, please check out our Patreon page at patreon.com/theglasslesstravel. Don't forget to click that subscribe button and like us on YouTube and Facebook. Tonight we are joined by my buddy Nick over at Whiskey Acres. Nick, you mentioned you're trying to channel me. I specifically didn't trim my beard because I saw the picture of you had grown it out. So I'm glad you didn't shave the beard, because now I feel better about myself.
Well, I'm going to evolve from this into the General Ambrose Burnside look.
Oh, there you go.
So I just got to get this a little fluffier, get this stuff to come down a little bit.
You know, it might not be a bad idea maybe to even try like the Howard Taft look, where you have the really bushy sideburns and nothing right here in the center.
When this goes away, it's going to be a process.
Yeah. So for those of you guys watching, everybody knows who Nick is. Everybody's probably met you at some point or another. Nick and I, you and I have known each other for about a year now. You actually gave me some sage advice when I first started the Fox Valley Whiskey Society. I actually remember I called you on the phone, and we had talked about the guys over there at the Adventures in Bourbon Club, and you had mentioned TJ and Will. It's a part-time job, but it's really a full-time job. And boy, you were not kidding. This has kind of turned into a bit of a full-time job, but it's a lot of fun, and I appreciate all the positive feedback that you've given us here at the Fox Valley Whiskey Society. But I want to talk about Whiskey Acres, because you guys are kind of like our local distillery, right? You guys are kind of like the hometown heroes here. Tell us about Whiskey Acres and how you decided to get into the whiskey business.
I don't have a full enough bottle to answer that question.
Yeah, right now. Fortunately, I got mine. I wish I could share it with you.
So Whiskey Acres is it's a combination of a few very key people here. So I'm one of the founders, and I have two business partners, Jim and Jamie Walter, and they're a father and son team whose farm we built the distillery on over in DeKalb. So their family has been on that farm since the 1930s. My family has a different farm about 100 miles south of DeKalb that we've been on since the 1860s. And so Whiskey Acres was really about farmers doing something with the grain that we grow, and making something high quality, high value that we can share with our friends and customers, that didn't involve cows or ethanol, really. And it was a way for us to get a little bit from the agriculture and farming perspective, to diversify the farm, to get a little higher on the food chain, but from the distilling perspective is to really showcase what farming means and what agriculture means to whiskey production. So if you take a step back and look at how wineries are managed, and estate wineries in particular, it's about the grape, it's about the location, and it's about the producer. I think that in whiskey production, it's often about the location, and really, historically, it's about being in Kentucky, and it's not about the grain. It's about, in bourbon, it's about being corn. I can tell you that all corn is not created equal.
Oh, definitely.
And our ability to grow, identify, segregate, clean, mill, mash, ferment, distill, barrel, and bottle separates us from most, because from the beginning, we know that we're putting a different seed in the ground, and that's going to create a different type of corn and subsequently a different type of whiskey.
Sure. So I want to talk about real quick. You guys are all farmers. I want to talk about the farming aspect of owning a distillery. Being located in DeKalb County, you guys have a rich farming heritage all around you. And all three of you owners of Whiskey Acres actually come from a farming background and a farming family. When we open up the history books and see where and how bourbon was born, we find stories much like your own, but yours is kind of like the modern day twist to it. Craft distilling kind of seems to be split 50-50 with owners who grow their own corn and owners who buy their own corn. How important is it to you that you are the main source of the grain for your whiskey?
Well, I'll maybe correct one thing. I don't think it's a 50-50 split of growers versus consuming. I would say it's more like a 98 or 99 to 1.
Oh, okay.
We have very few peers in the industry who control the process from seed to spirit.
Sure.
There's a few, but most are sourcing from farmers, but not blessed with the ability to make the decision in the spring of what we're going to put in the ground. And so as a continuation of that, it is, just like in grapes, the grain matters. And so for us, if we didn't have a farm, we wouldn't have a distillery. So that's number one thing there is if the reason we opened Whiskey Acres is to showcase what we're doing. As a kind of a fun aside here, Jim, one of my business partners, this is his 51st season farming.
Oh, wow.
He is an awarded master farmer, and 4 people in the United States are given that award a year. And so the obvious thing is you get that award if and you're nominated by your peers. You get that award, you're a good steward of the land, a good member of the community, and willing to teach the next generation and consistently are raising high quality crops. Every time that we take grain and begin the whiskey making process, I know that we're blessed with the highest quality grain, and particularly corn, that we could ever ask for. We can't go shopping for what we get to use that's grown in our backyard.
Right. So you grow your own corn. What about like the rye, the wheat, the barley? Where does that come from?
Our backyard.
Oh, so everything is.
So the corn is 100% us. The wheat is 100% us. The wheat is a little different in that we don't experiment with wheat. We have found a very specific variety of wheat that is consistent, that likes where we're growing, that makes good whiskey. We found it. That's what we're doing.
Sure.
And the same thing can be said with rye. We'll geek here a little bit. As farmers in the state of Illinois, when they plant rye seed, they're generally planting it as a cover crop. Rye is not grown here for grain. Rye is grown here to put organic matter into the soil, prevent erosion, and utilize for nutrient management. Generally speaking, rye is not grown to the seed stage. It's tilled back into the soil, again, for nutrient and water management. Part of the reason for that is you'll often hear rye can be grown anywhere, and it really can. Rye is a very diverse, versatile crop. Rye grows too well here. We're blessed with a wonderful climate and very nutrient-rich topsoil. And so what happens is when you plant rye seed, that grain, that plant grows, instead of 6 feet tall, it grows 9-10 feet tall. And then if you think about what typically happens in an Illinois early summer, think what happens on 4th of July often. You get a thunderstorm with 50-mile-an-hour wind and rain, and your rye is almost ready to harvest, and it gets blown down and essentially becomes unharvestable. We actually worked with Dave Pickerel. He was one of our mentors and advisors in this, and worked with him to identify a very specific variety of rye that was developed in Canada. And we brought that rye seed back down to the farm here and utilize this one because from an agronomic standpoint, it grows much shorter than most rye.
Sure.
It has a much stronger stalk so that it can survive the winds and rains that we get here.
Right.
And the absolute bonus is that it has this wonderful vanilla forward nose and flavor that is very, very uncommon in most rye. If you talk to somebody about rye, they talk about spicy and bitey.
Always.
And
we
and we have a peppery bite in our rye, but it's from it's very different. It's like a white pepper. It's subtle. It's soft. Our rye is often confused with bourbon, and we're proud of that. We think it's approachable, and so in a crowded market, we look for what can we do on our own to be high quality, desirable but different, and the rye that we grow has allowed that to happen. And so we grow all of our corn, all of our wheat, all of our rye. And as of this spring, we are now growing our own barley crop as well.
Wow.
And
So you
we'll,
guys are like all just right there.
Yep.
Wow. So you had mentioned Dave Pickerel, and that's actually one of the questions on my list here. Dave passed away. I want to say, was it 2016 or 2013 or something that he passed? 2018 that he passed.
I think November of 18.
So for those of you who don't know, Dave Pickerel was famously the master distiller at, I think it was Maker's Mark for years and years, but he has advised copious amounts of distilleries, Whiskey Acres being one of them. Aside from the rye, what else did Dave kind of help you with? Getting the distillery off the ground.
He was kind of like a personal shopper.
Yeah.
When you build a distillery from scratch, you look at it. In our case, you look at an empty building and go, "Now what?"
Right.
And so what we're really proud of actually is it took us probably the better part of 3 months to get Dave to answer the phone or respond to an email. Dave was the most sought after person in craft distilling. He's often been referred to as the Michael Jordan of craft distilling, and I don't know that there's a better description for him. And so our pure passion of pursuit of him, he knew that we were serious. And we often joke that once we got Dave on the phone, he in so many words gave us the privilege of paying him to interview us to see whether we could continue to pay him to help us to get the distillery going. And so he flew here and spent the day with us, getting to know us personally and getting to know our aspirations for the business. And he told us, I don't remember the exact number, but he said, of every 50 distilleries or 100 prospective distilleries that reach out to him, he might work with one. And he said yes to us because of our ability to grow the grains and our passion about letting the terroir of DeKalb in our backyard shine through in the spirits that we were going to eventually make. So
he had mentioned too, I remember, I think it was the first tour that I ever took there. He had mentioned something about you guys naturally sit on, is it an aquifer, or you guys have like a natural source of like really good quality water that you sit on as well?
Yeah. So we preach grain because that's a big differentiator for us. And if you ever go on a distillery tour in Kentucky, they preach water, right? Limestone aquifer. One of our initial conversations with Dave is we knew that opening a distillery was going to have a fairly heavy load on our well. And so we were looking into digging a new well on the farm that would essentially give us access to what would be like a municipal water supply.
Sure.
Lots of water has to come in and go out. And Dave cautioned us, before you do this, let's just find out what you're sitting on here. We sent a water sample off and got the results back. I just remember him laughing when he opened up the envelope and reading it. And he says, "Your water is chemically identical to the water they're using in Bart's County, Kentucky."
Oh,
and he said, "We ain't digging a new well, boys. We're going to figure out how to make this work." And so that became beneficial in two ways. In that, just number one, and most obviously, we have great quality water and really don't need to do anything to it. But number two is it forced us to become sustainable because we can't drain that water supply.
Right.
So we then designed our entire system to recirculate and recapture water and BTUs so that our cooling water today is our cooking water tomorrow. We use we use a cooling tower. So all that water recirculates. We have a glycol chiller that's attached to a 500-gallon cooling water tank. All that water is recirculated. If we're doing a single batch of whiskey in a day, that batch is going to use 500 to 600 gallons of water. 400 gallons of that are the ingredients. Mm-hmm. The rest of it, just using round numbers, is cleaning, is bottle proofing, barrel proofing, those kind of things.
Right.
Typically, distilleries our size are using 5,000 to 10,000 gallons a batch. we're using 500 to 600.
Wow.
And so from a sustainability standpoint, we didn't intend for that to be what happened. But once we realized that we had a resource that we needed to sustain, that became a model for us to not only, become sustainable in water, but really kind of focus on the business as a whole to be sustainable. The fact that the grain is in the backyard, the metrics for sustainability of having corn travel 100 yards versus 100 miles is very different.
Right.
I think it's 2 springs ago, we brought online a solar system, a solar farm. Everything on the distillery, the farm, the visitor center, the tasting room is solar powered.
Really? Wow.
Dave was never able to be a part of that, but I can just envision his smile seeing our solar farm out there and in conjunction with all the other things. Yeah.
Yeah. So one of the topics that we talk about here when we talk about craft distilling, obviously, is sourcing or contract distilling, which is very, very prevalent in the craft distilling world. You guys decided to forego that completely and said, we're not going to source, we're not going to contract, we're going to start from scratch, we're going to build this distillery. As big of a financial burden as it becomes on a lot of distilleries, you guys have hit the ball out of the park. Talk to us about that decision between that conversation between you, Jim, and Jamie, where you're like, we're not going to source, we're not going to contract distill, we're going to do everything, boom, 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 boom. It's all going to be us.
Well, again, it goes back to the foundation of Whiskey Acres is the farm, and so by buying whiskey that somebody else made, and that completely goes in the face of what we want to do and who we intended to be. Sure. We often say when we opened the distillery, we didn't quit our day jobs. And by God, that's the truth. I joke that before we started, I had a full head of hair. That's really not true. But if I would have, it would be gone. The farm continues to operate. We have some side seed businesses that allow us to financially be able to make the investment in the time that the distillery needs to become mature.
Sure.
And it's the long look is the way we've taken it. And it's been tough. It's been challenging, and particularly challenging in that, we've looked at 2020 as the year in which our fruits become ripe and COVID has told us that we're going to have to just let it get a little riper.
Yep.
But we're in a position to really bring some great products to market because we've been patient and not have to apologize or explain for it to anything.
Sure.
Everybody has a different circumstance. So for us, we don't throw a stone at somebody who sources. Fine. Right. My ask as a peer in the industry is just be transparent about it.
Oh, sure.
That is transparency is the word that kind of drives everything that we do is be truthful, be transparent. If you're not, you're going to get caught, and just be upfront today so you don't have to apologize tomorrow.
So that was actually one of my questions on here. I'm scrolling through on my phone, but you had mentioned, 2020 has kind of been it's been screwy for everybody, right? Especially for the craft, whether it's a distillery or brewery, or you make a craft soda, or you have a home business. You guys actually have some news that's starting tomorrow. You guys are going to be offering curbside pickup. Is that the missus over there?
Oh yeah, this is Amanda.
Hey Amanda,
she's the money behind this operation here.
Yeah.
You're on Fox Valley Whiskey Society Live.
Yeah,
guys.
There's 11,000 people watching it right now.
Holy shit! I need lipstick.
So, the whole curbside thing, everybody's kind of been doing this curbside. Whose decision was that? Who wore the pants in that decision? Was that a you or Amanda, or was that a?
No, this was a team. So we punted probably 6 weeks ago. We were looking into doing curbside. Not just looking. We had half built a website and all those things, and quickly realized that the best use of our time and talents was focusing on for lack of a better word, bulk production of hand sanitizer. Mm-hmm. So instead of of dealing with selling a bottle to Mike and his friends, we were getting calls from institutions and distributors and I mean, honestly, the Secret Service, just kind of places that needed it in quantity.
Yeah.
And so we've got to take our time, talents, and team and focus them on producing, processing, and packaging hand sanitizer to get it to those in need as quickly as possible. And so we hit pause on curbside. The month of April was nuts. Nuts. The month of May has slowed down a little bit from a sanitizer standpoint and allowed us to begin to focus on the Michaels of the world who need a jug or want a bottle to refill. And if we're going to do it, we want to do it right. And so we've been able to, we spent a lot of time building the site, working out as many gremlins as possible, and making sure that we have the product and the team ready to do this, because I am excited and terrified for tomorrow. And we've got we're gonna have a long line, and we want to make sure that we do this the right way and the safe way. And tomorrow we call a trial. We didn't, aside from adding a couple different options of hand sanitizer, we've not added anything new to the whiskey portfolio. When tomorrow's successful, and I totally anticipate it being that way, we're then going to be able to do some learnings, to make some modifications, and then be able to we've got some great things in barrels that are ready.
Yeah.
Like this.
I know. Show it.
Show it. Right here.
There it is. That bottled in bond.
Bottled in bond. Yeah.
There it is.
This was supposed to be released on April 4th.
I remember that. Yeah.
We hit pause on that, and we want to give this the credit that it's due and the attention that it deserves. And so, in some form or fashion, in the coming weeks or months, you will find a bottled and bond release from us. I don't know how we'll do it yet. I can tell you that we had dozens of events planned in April to support the launch, and we didn't, but we will.
But
we will.
Yeah. So regarding the release tomorrow, so obviously you're going to have, and by the way, your hand sanitizer. So I think most people know by now that my full-time job is working. I work at Menards in Batavia. Your gallon of hand sanitizer has been cleaning the hands of all of my fellow employees for the past about 5 days now. I have little spray bottles, so everybody, if anybody runs out of sanitizer at their desk, they know to come over to my desk. And I've told them, I told them, I said, I've got 160 proof moonshine at my desk, but it's not drinkable. So for those watching, do not drink it. It is not meant to be drank. It was a joke because it's from a distillery.
Don't drink it.
I have it in a little spray bottle, so everybody comes over to my desk and they're like, I don't have any hand sanitizer. Can I get a couple sprays of? So you're supplying the Menards in Batavia with clean hands. So aside from,
I do want to add. So don't drink it.
Yes,
don't drink it. Don't drink it. I have tasted it. It was a mistake.
How long did it burn?
It wasn't a burn. So we are producing an FDA registered and regulated hand sanitizer product. And part of that mandates a set of ingredients. And one of those ingredients is the commercial name of the product is called Bitrex. Bitrex is the most bitter compound known to man.
Oh, yep, yeah.
And it's bitter. It's awful. Yeah.
I think they put Bitrex in the canned air too, so that people don't. Don't do. And so again, don't drink the hand sanitizer and don't huff on air. So aside from the bourbon, which is going to be available tomorrow for curbside pickup along with the rye. Another thing that's not a secret is everybody's pretty familiar with like my top 5, and in my top 5 whiskeys is the maple syrup cask, the Artisan Series. The first time I ever had it, I was very disappointed that it only comes in 375 milliliter because it is my absolute favorite. But one of the things that I didn't know and you actually mentioned this when the Fox Valley Whiskey Society, I think it was in September or October, we did a private tour, and you had mentioned that some of your artisan series, and I purchased one of them, is actually created by the volunteers there at Whiskey Acres. Tell us about that program and what kind of neat and fun things have come out of the employee vault for the artisan series.
So actually, our artisan series is really about showcasing. It started with, let's showcase how we can diversify bourbon by simply changing the type of corn we use.
Sure.
And so I do not have a sample of yellow dent corn, but wait 3 months, pull off on the side of the road, husk an ear, you'll figure it out.
Sure.
But I do have, so for instance here, this was actually our first artisan series release.
Okay.
This is called Oaxacan green corn. This is an heirloom varietal that originated out of the Oaxacan region of Mexico. And we got this seed and planted it. And cliche as it is, this made a whiskey that was spicy like a rye. And
really?
And we sold through that in a couple weeks. And this is a tough one to grow because it's adapted to Oaxaca, Mexico,
right,
as opposed to DeKalb, Illinois, and we
right.
have a different microclimate here. So we had sort of said, well, we don't think we're going to do it again. The demand for this has been unparalleled. So 2 weeks ago, maybe not even 2 weeks ago, we planted this again, and planted it in a place and in a way so that we can give it a little bit more time and attention.
Sure.
So this is going to get grown with kid gloves this year. And so, fast forward, it's going to take a growing season, a distilling season, and then 4 or so years or 5 years for it to get its way into a bottle. But this is or was Artisan Series number 1, and will be Artisan Series I don't know what yet. This guy here, this is called Glass Gem Popcorn. If I took this guy and put it in the microwave, a minute and a half later, it'd be popped.
Does it taste like regular popcorn?
Yep. The seeds, the kernels are a little bit smaller, but it tastes just like popcorn.
Okay.
But this is an heirloom varietal. This is actually probably the biggest ear I've ever seen. Most of the ears are about this big.
Yeah.
And the corn stands 3-4 feet tall, and often has
really? So it's pretty
4 or 5 ears on it. It's a beast to grow. We're used to harvesting 2 to 250 bushel corn per acre in our traditional or conventional corn. If we could get 40 bushels to the acre out of this, we would call that a good harvest.
Sure.
And that goes back to why it's important to have the farm, is because we can, if we had to buy this grain to turn into whiskey, we'd have to sell it as a $300 bottle of whiskey, because the input costs would be so high.
Right.
But because we can make the investment in the land and the time, and sort of close our eyes and wink through the growing challenges we have and make a unique product, we can do it. But
sure.
if we were buying it, bad deal.
Yeah.
Another artisan series, another popcorn actually. This is a blue popcorn. They call it Shaman Blue. They maybe should call it purple, but whatever. Again, if I put this in the microwave, it would pop. And we've got some of this that is ready, and will be released sometime when we can figure out how to readapt our release schedule. And this one, maybe
sure.
a few folks have heard about, but this is Bloody Butcher. So 4 or 5 years ago,
that one you talk about on your tour quite a bit.
Yeah. So we bought 100 seeds, call it 5 years ago, and planted those. 100 seeds became 100 of these.
Sure.
Handpicked each of these, turned these into seeds, so that what was 100 seeds became 30,000 or something.
Right.
We're able to grow an acre or two of it, and have blown out that seed supply, so that for a couple of years, we were able to grow quantities of it so that we could make 40 or 50 barrels of it in a season to release our artisan series.
Sure. So what else in the artisan series is available right now that people can go tomorrow or Friday or Saturday and pick up?
Not a damn thing.
It's all gone.
So our artisan series, if we, generally speaking, if we release it on a Friday, it's gone by a Sunday. And so, obviously with the times we have right now, we have just kept everything in a barrel. What's going to be fun and particular to the blue popcorn is we had I think 2 releases of that over the last few years and knew that we were onto something special. And so this year or soon, we will have quantities of it. So instead of a distillery only release that sells out in 2 days,
sure.
We're going to have something that can make its way into distribution. And
okay.
So I don't know the numbers. I don't know the exact timing, but if I'm looking forward here of upcoming releases, I'll show it again. Bottled in Bond, on its way. We will also have the blue popcorn. You brought up maple cask. That's on its way as well.
Yes,
that's on its way as well. And then we've got some cask strength single barrel releases that we'll be doing coming soon too.
So that actually, you just answered my next question, which was basically kind of phrases. Bourbon is kind of this. It's an industry that prides itself on heritage and history and kind of keeping things, very much so the same. But you guys are kind of, as much as you are keeping things the same, benefiting you having your own farm. You're able to take these wild, varietals of corn and say, hey, what does it turn into? What are some of the varietals of corn that you've distilled and said, oh no?
So if you look at you've got that bottle of straight bourbon whiskey behind you there. So that is our standard offering. And what's in that bottle right now is about 3 different varietals of corn that we grow year in and year out. Some show better than others from one year to the next, but we know that we can consistently grow them and consistently distill them into a consistent product. As farmers, every year we're growing between 16 and 24 different varietals of corn. And we're growing those to test the newest, the latest technology and seed genetics to see what's going to best adapt to our growing conditions to grow the most bushels per acre. That's when we're wearing our farmer hat. But at the same time, we can put our distiller hat on. And instead of worrying, as farmers, the way we make money is you grow as many bushels per acre as possible and sell it at the highest price that the market gives you.
Mm-hmm.
So it's truly a commoditized business.
Right.
In distilling, bushels per acre doesn't matter. Quality per acre matters.
Sure.
So there are certain varietals of corn that are not the best adapted to growing the most bushels per acre here, but may produce high quality grain, just less of it. And we found sort of both. So we've got some high yielding, high quality grain, and we've got some lower yielding, high quality grain that if we were just farming, we wouldn't grow these.
Sure.
But because we can dedicate some specific acres to distilling, they have great starch content, they've got great test weight, they have disease resistance, they dry down well, so they don't need as much commercial drying. So just the wind blowing on them in the fall dries them down naturally. That makes for much higher quality grain than having to put them through a heat induced grain dryer. So we have planted lots of them that went not going to work. And a few of them that went, this is something special, and make a note of them. We plant them the next year. My business partner, actually, he will take and shell some, Jamie will shell some corn, and I laugh at him. He says he's making tea, and he'll grind it up, put it in hot water and taste them out and see how they taste.
Yeah.
And it makes a difference.
That's a pretty cool method. It's funny. I want to we kind of rewind back to the Dave Pickerel and the Maker's Mark thing. Dina and I, who's by the way, for those of you who don't know, Dina and I went and got married a couple.
Congrats!
Weeks ago. Thank
Congrats!
you.
You should have shaved.
I should have shaved, but I was like, what, if Nick's not going to do it, God damn it, I'm not going to shave.
I got married 10 years ago, my friend.
Yeah, I know, and now you don't.
And
have to
I
worry
was
about
well
shaving.
shaven.
Yeah. Now she's stuck with you, so you don't have to shave. Grow that damn beard, Nick.
That's right.
One of the first trips that Dina and I took was to Maker's Mark, and they had mentioned that when Bill Samuels was trying to figure out what wheat he wanted to use and what recipe he wanted to use for his mash bill, him and his wife made bread out of it, and they said, okay, which bread tastes the best? And the winning bread was the one that they made the mash bill out of. So it's really interesting that Jamie makes tea out of it, which is, I guess, a pretty good way to kind of judge and see where your bourbon is going to be at. One of the questions that I do want to ask that I ask a lot of the craft distilleries, the guys up at Dancing Goat and the guys over at J. Henry, and one of the topics of conversation among some of the larger distilleries these days is the use of non-GMO corn and whether or not it is a sustainable option moving forward as demand for whiskey grows. The conversation being that GMO corn produces a cheaper price than non-GMO corn. As a craft distillery, is it important to you, non-GMO versus GMO? Does it matter? Are you seeing any kind of backlash? What are your thoughts as a farmer and B, a distillery on the GMO versus non-GMO corn debate?
Yeah, and it's going to be a continued debate. But I will say, for us, our focus is on grain quality, and I can tell you, without question, utilizing GMO grain gives us the highest quality grain to utilize for whiskey making.
Sure.
So, I'll go down a little bit of a rabbit hole with you here. Our number one pest that we have in northern Illinois is something called corn rootworm, and it's in the spring, summer, you'll see these beetles flying around, yellow and black beetles. They're male and female beetles that are mating, and then the females go and lay some eggs in the soil, and those eggs overwinter, and then they hatch, kind of coinciding with when the corn plant is developing a nice root system. Those larvae seek out the carbon dioxide is being produced by those roots, and they chew on them. And think of those roots as two different functions for the corn plant. The first and most obvious is they're the foundation, they're the structure for that corn plant. So if you think about a tree, if you start to chop at the tree's roots, that tree's going to fall down. Same thing happens with corn. The second part of it, though, is that root system is pulling nutrients and moisture from the soil. And so think of those roots as a straw. If you poke a hole in your straw while you're drinking a Coke, not as much comes through.
Right.
So you have to manage those insects, right? It's to grow grain, to grow corn, you have to manage those insects. And you can do it in one of two ways. You can use a non-GMO method, and the most traditional way of using that is using an aerial applied product that's called Bacillus thuringiensis, BT. And what that does is you, when you reach a certain threshold, you go apply this dust, it's a crop dusting product, and you kill mommy and daddy. If you kill mommy and daddy beetles, there's less babies the next year.
Sure.
And the problem with that is that you are killing mommy and daddy beetles, but you're also killing the ladybugs and the other beneficial insects that are out there.
Right.
But
Right.
that is an organic approved method for managing these insects. On the other hand, if you're using GMO technology, GMO has it's been developed that you can express that same BT protein within the root system.
Sure.
And so when those larvae go to seek out the root, once they take their first bite, they get sick, they quit eating, and they die.
Sure.
And only the offending insect that's doing the feeding dies.
Sure.
And so that technology allows me to be very specific and very precise on what we are targeting and not having any secondary pests, any beneficial insects that are dying.
Sure.
So for us, We do grow non-GMO, but we mostly grow GMO technology corn, and we do it because we know it's going to grow higher quality grain.
Sure.
And we believe that it's a more sustainable way to grow crops. And,
Yeah.
and so we look at it from a perspective of science says this is the way to do it, and we believe in that method.
And I absolutely agree. And, you know, there's a lot of people out there. And for those of you who are wondering why, you know, distilleries like Buffalo Trace or Wild Turkey or yada, 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 don't use GMO corn is because of distribution outside of the United States. The EU does not approve any use of GMO corn in a product. So if a distillery like that does use a GMO product, they can't then sell to Asia, Europe, yada, yada, yada. So you do see a lot of those bigger, larger craft or you know, macro distilleries using that. So in case any of those of you who are wondering why this topic comes up,
often ask people, if you're drinking alcohol, you're really worried. Right.
Exactly. Well, you know, the other thing is like watermelons are a GMO product. You know, watermelons didn't look like that 100 years ago. A banana did not look like the banana that we know 100 years ago. Carrots were not always orange. Carrots are not meant to be orange.
Corn started in Mexico as a crop called teosinte.
Yeah.
And it was knee high,
and it was very thin and very small.
And it had a little kernel on each of it. You know, each cob had a kernel on it. If we did not embrace science, if we did not utilize the technology that we've learned, we'd be a hungry world. And so I think it's important to be safe, to be thoughtful, but also to not be fearful.
Sure. Yeah, and like I said, I mean, you know, it's a topic of conversation that comes up. You know, I've probably got a dozen bourbon books next to me, and you know, that's always one of the conversations that people always bring up. Oh, well, is it GMO? Is it non-GMO? It's like, does it really matter? A, the distilling process is going to strip away anything that you might think is going to be bad for you. But B, there's every study that has ever been done has shown that GMO products are not any worse from you than the non-GMO products. But it's, you know, you get some of those people that are still concerned about it, and their body, their temple. I get it, but regardless,
we could have very easily converted everything to non-GMO and simply done it for a marketing perspective, to be able to say it. But we took the thought that it's important for us. We are blessed with the fact that Whiskey Acres is probably one of the most visible group of farmers in the United States. And we think it's important for us to be stewards of the story and be confident and proud of what we're doing and why we're doing it. And it's short-sighted for us. This technology allows us to be better, safer farmers.
Sure.
And so if we took the idea that, hey, we're gonna grow non-GMO and poo-poo the technology, that has an impact well beyond just our distilling business. And so we think it's important to be, again, thoughtful and let science lead the way.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, whether it's GMO or non-GMO, ultimately what I'm after is it a good product, and is it at an affordable price range? And Whiskey Acres is, from the beginning been one of my favorites. I do want to talk about, just real quick here, even though this is the Fox Valley Whiskey Society, your vodka. I want to talk about your vodka. Yeah. I know. So mind you, this Whiskey Acres vodka is not a flavored vodka. This is just a straight vodka, but the primary and pretty much sole flavor kind of component that is very, very predominant in your vodka is butterscotch. Where does that come from in your vodka?
The corn.
It is.
Yep. So if you want to lose money in the distilling world, build a whiskey distillery and make vodka using that equipment. Okay. that's so a little context here. There's a lot of moving parts in this. So in the state of Illinois, if you have a distillery, you can have a tasting room. If you have a tasting room, you can only sell what you make. And we decided that having vodka as part of our portfolio was necessary. And so we're primarily a corn farm, so we're gonna make a corn vodka. and again, it goes back to one of your first questions you asked me is we're not going to source. It would be so easy to source some GNS and rip it through our still and call it our own. But that goes completely and totally in the face of everything that we do. So we make vodka using a whiskey still. We have a 500-gallon pot still with an 8-plate column. That's built to make whiskey, which can't be distilled any higher than 160 proof. Mm-hmm. So we distill this vodka. We do a 500-gallon batch. Each 500-gallon batch gives us about 50 gallons of 150 proof alcohol. We do 10 batches to get 500 gallons. We put it back in the still, distill it a second time to get up to about 180 proof. We lose about 20%. So now we got about 400 gallons. We put it back in the still and do it a third time to get it to 190 proof. Lose about 20%. And so now we have 190 proof, high proof alcohol that we'll proof down to do vodka. I like to draw the analogy of like the low and slow method of us distilling this 100% corn mash to get it up to that high proof is like slow smoking a brisket versus hot searing a steak. That slow smoking process allows so many more flavors to come through. This slow distilling process allows this beautiful bright butterscotch flavor to come through. So we made it. And then we were selling it through the front door of our tasting room. Then we sent it off to a couple spirits competitions. I don't know why we did it. And I don't remember which one it was. It was LA or San Francisco or Denver or something like that. We got a damn gold medal for our vodka. And then guess who called? Vinny's called. And they wanted all their stores. So instead of doing, a couple days worth of it, we had to dedicate 2 or 3 weeks to it. So, but the net of it is, to your point, it is this butterscotch forward, heavy viscosity, just wonderfully. It's vodka the way it should be. It's not the shortcut vodka. Throw it for me. I throw it in the freezer. It pours the consistency of maple syrup. And you get that butterscotch.
Yeah. And it's weird. So we went to Dina and I actually I think it was one of the very first series of dates that we went on. You did Whiskey Acres did a private dinner at Buttermilk in Geneva. This was like 2008. It was 19, very beginning of 2019.
It was spring of 19.
End of 2018. Yep. So we went to this private dinner. And Dina was like, I'll have I think it was like a vodka lemonade or something. And she sipped on it and she goes, this doesn't taste right. I go, no, it almost doesn't. Hold on. Let's try the vodka just straight because I think it's a vodka. And then literally right after that, we were sampling the vodka and you were like, does anybody else get butterscotch? And we're like, holy shit, that's it. That's what it is. And for me, it's just, I'm not a vodka drinker. That's probably the only one that I'll drink. Just
so if somebody tells me that they like vodka, they don't like my stuff. If somebody tells me they're a bourbon drinker and they hate vodka, they want to buy a case of my stuff. Right. Yeah.
Your vodka is for the bourbon drinker because vodka, per the United States, is a characterless, odorless, tasteless. It's just alcohol. Yours is not that at all. It's way more than that. And it's very good.
It's clear and it's distilled 190 proof.
Exactly. Yeah, it'll do the trick.
Yeah.
I want to talk about
real quick. I do. Yeah. There's a John. John has a question. Do you know when your tasting room will open? Good question. I do think we let me look here to give you maybe a little bit of a solid answer. Is per the governor's recent announcement today that bars and restaurants can open up with outside seating. And we were kind of hoping this would happen because we had a better part of a truckload of outdoor patio furniture arrive yesterday. We're looking like a tentative, and again, I'm going to emphasize tentative date of Friday, June 5th is what we're looking at. Okay. And we're going to modify our hours. We're not going to give tours. We're going to create the new word, socially distanced space. Picnic tables and patio tables and this and that, and we got some outdoor bars and going to do our best to create an environment experience for people to just get the hell out of the house, see some space, have some cocktails, but at the same time, remember that we built a brand new visitor center last year with the intention of letting people come inside. And so now we got to kind of redo the way we're working and figure out how to make people comfortable outside. Yeah. And when you come visit us on June 5th, the bugs are going to be out there. right?
Yeah.
You know, you're going to be on a farm, and mosquitoes and flies are going to be there, and we're a mile away from a hog farm, and you know what? Just enjoy it, because you know you're out, you're enjoying the space, and that's really what we're all about. We're going to do our best to give you the best experience.
Exactly. You just enjoy the bourbon. That's all you got to do.
Right.
So regarding the COVID-19, one of the questions I have here, it's pretty long and in depth, but it's a question that's kind of on everybody's mind, and one that I'm always interested in. So I'll start here. So Thomas Mooney, the founder of Westward Whiskey, has said that during this pandemic, digital is the main focus, and he has created what he calls Westward Together, that brings the experience of a meet the maker tasting to people's homes, which allows them to have direct conversation with their customers and followers through a virtual platform. Consumerism will no doubt change once this pandemic is passed, which could see on-premise sales dip drastically, and that could hurt the craft spirits industry as well as the craft brewing industry. Has Whiskey Acres created a plan to adapt to this change, or adapt a more digital approach to interacting with its consumers, should this phase 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever continue into the future? Is there a plan to maybe do something like what we're doing here, that Whiskey Acres has put into play?
Well, I'm with you now, right?
Yeah, we're doing this now.
Check. You know, in the next week, I think I have. I've got something with Carmen DeFalco coming up. I've got something with Northern Illinois. With grain, I've got at least 3 or 4 things like this planned.
Sure.
So absolutely, we are going to, utilize the digital tools that allow us to interact with our customers and friends.
Sure.
At the same time, this isn't going to last forever. We're still going to be able to. We're going to shake hands again someday.
Someday,
and
soon, hopefully.
And so we've got a space that we're going to continue to utilize. We're going to have to adapt. To your point, the on-premise thing is going to change. I don't know when I'm going to get to go do a whiskey tasting. Host a whiskey tasting next. But yes, to say that we've got a written plan would be a flat out lie. But to tell you that we're figuring it out because there's not a manual for it would be the truth. And this is, I think I said it when we opened here, sanitizer took over our life in March and April.
Right.
And this is, we're now being able to begin, kind of starting tomorrow with the curbside program to be able to start to re-engage and interact with our friends and customers. And then we'll grow from there and see what works.
Sure. So we're coming up on the hour. I've got all the hard questions out of the way. I want to learn a little bit about Nick. One of the things that kind of fascinates me is everybody's what I call like their Genesis story. I remember my first sip of bourbon where I was like, I like it. I love it. This is like kind of taken over my life. You came from a farming background, which is historically kind of where bourbon started. Were you always a whiskey guy, or did this start when you were like, hey, we're going to start a distillery? I'm going to have to start liking this stuff.
I have my love for whiskey and Whiskey Acres kind of has 2 different paths that kind of converge. So the first and probably easiest to explain is I'm a people person, and I'm a proud farm boy. And I grew up in Sheldon, Illinois. It's a town about 100 miles straight south of Chicago. I graduated high school with 15 kids. And then I went to the University of Illinois. And when I went down there, I quickly learned that I was blessed and cursed with the farm boy background.
Sure.
That I was one of the few people who knew every person in their class, who was related to most people in their class, who knew how to drive a tractor, and was captain and president and this and that, and didn't realize that was a unique experience. And then having conversations with the folks who became my friends, realized that like people didn't know the difference between a corn plant and a soybean plant. People actually think that chocolate milk comes from a brown cow.
That's true, by the way, folks. There are people that think that. Yeah, yes. That's true. That's true.
And so for me, I immediately grew a passion for what can I do in my life to bridge the gap between the makers and the consumers and the farming side of things. And so I actually spent a few years after I graduated college, traveling across the Midwest, teaching essentially the farm to table process to high school kids and consumers at fairs and events and things. And again, just continue to recognize there's a gap. And then there's Party Nick. Okay. I love to host. I love to have people come to me and create a fun experience. And I actually had several books that I bought 15 years ago, or how to open your own bar and how to open your restaurant. And always had this idea of opening a place called the Barn, and creating this experience. And so that's kind of piece one of the experiential part of why I wanted how I got to where I am. Piece two, and none of that has anything to do with whiskey at all.
We're getting there.
Yeah. Piece two is back at this job I had. I worked for a company called Weber Shandwick, and it was a multinational public relations firm. And again, I was doing agriculture work for them, and was given the opportunity to create a kind of a fraternity party on a Friday where it was around the world, and every office had a different theme. And one of the guys, John Mose, I hope he gets to see this someday. John Mose did a whiskey tasting, and John had, I think, Maker's Mark and a Scotch and a Jack Daniels, and talked about how each of these was different and why. And I don't remember specifically what I tasted, but I went, I like this.
Yeah,
I like these, and I want to begin to grow with these and make, get rid of Busch Light, integrate something that's fun and a little higher quality. And so again, fast forward a little bit from there, I got to meet Jim and Jamie, the guys who are now my business partners through the seed business, and they actually conceived the idea of starting the distillery on their farm. They knew some of the background that I have and my passions, and asked if I wanted to be a partner. And I came back and asked Amanda. I said, "What do you think?" And she knew my background, and she said, "Do it now or regret ever not doing it." And so for me, Whiskey Acres is about creating a place and a product. It's not just about alcohol. It's not about whiskey. It's about creating an experience to teach, to show, to share. And that's why I do this, and that's why I love what we do.
Yeah. And you guys have done a really good job over there at Whiskey Acres, especially with the, educating people on what it is and the process. Like I said, we had a group of 15 or so people that were there in, it was September, October or something of last year, and you had mentioned, you said if there was a Bourbon 101 class, this would be the Bourbon 404 class. We dove in. I mean, I'm a bourbon steward. I know about as much as there is to know. And I was like, oh shit, I didn't know that. So that was really fun. So Nick, we're up on our hour. Like I said, it's a pretty quick hour. Thank you everybody who watched, John and Hound Dog and Wilson. I know Mark Augustin usually watches this.
Mark, we're going to get you a cast strength whiskey here. Really?
He always says, he says, I listen to it in the background while I do the dishes. So thank you, Mark, for watching. And also, I don't know if he's watching, but I was at Woodman's earlier picking up a couple bottles, and I said, I was talking with Dean, and I said, okay, I have the Whiskey Acres, I have the rye for MGP on Friday, I have the Blonde Brothers. And then the guy next to me was like, yeah, when is that tonight? And I looked at it, I go, I'm thinking like he has to be a member of the Fox Valley Whiskey Society. They said, oh, it's at 7:00. He goes, all right, I'll be watching. So I'm sorry I didn't get your name, but thank you for watching. Nick, obviously, thank you for coming on and joining us. I can't wait to.
Before we wrap, can I have a couple things I want to say?
Absolutely. The stage is yours.
So if back to kind of the opening of Curbside, if anybody's interested in picking up anything from us tomorrow, get online, get on our website or Facebook page and order now, so that we can be best prepared to get things ready for you, because we don't want chaos tomorrow. So the sooner we can have every order fulfilled and packaged to just bring out and smile for you, the better. Number two, is I do want to thank my entire team at Whiskey Acres. We've got so Rob, our head distiller, has continued to make whiskey throughout this entire process, because if we're not making whiskey today, I don't have anything for you to drink 5 years from now. So we have continued to invest in making sure that we're able to be a consistent and reliable supplier. Eric, our assistant distiller, we call him the sanitizer. He has taken over the production line of our hand sanitizer, and really allowed us to kind of be in two businesses at the same time. So we're very blessed to have him on our team to make sure that we are able to supply something that we never anticipated needing to supply to the market.
Sure.
Trish, Lisa, Julia, and Jen are our front of the house team that normally you'd come into the space and they greet you with a smile and pour you a drink. For the last 2 months, they have been filling jugs of hand sanitizer and doing and putting up with each other and us, and really stepped up and kind of turned the corner and just done something that they never anticipated doing. So, you and your team who's got clean hands at Menards, that's thanks to that team there.
That's all those folks there, yeah.
Another commercial here. We have been donating to as many organizations as possible. One of them is Northern Illinois Food Bank, and the way we've been doing that is there's a T-shirt program that's going on where there's a that's being sold by several different companies, but for us it's the gals have kind of channeled Rosie the Riveter, and there's a T-shirt that says "Sanitize Local." They've got a beautiful gal on the shirt. $12.50 of every T-shirt sale, the net proceeds, we donate directly to the Northern Illinois Food Bank. We've actually already donated $3,200 to the food bank, and another $1,500 to a program called Caring for the Caretakers. And so if you go to our website, on the top of it, it says Northern Illinois Food Bank. You can click on that link to buy a T-shirt, or click on the Shop Now tab on our Facebook page. That'll take you there. Those are things that are well be above and beyond our whiskey business. We want to be good members of the community and partners. And specifically the food bank, I think it's $8. $1 that we give to them is $8 worth of food. So so help us help them.
Sure.
The back of the T-shirt says "Sanitize Local." Just and to my business partners Jim and Jamie, thank them for being great partners to keep this going and pivot during these weird times, and to my wife who's put up with this chaos, and Jim and Jamie's wives who put up with this chaos, and our customers. Thank you for your support. We are growing and learning, and are very excited to continue to do this and be friends with you and give you something that's fun and great to enjoy.
Well, thank you, Nick, and John just mentioned. So John is actually we host a social pub every now and then, and John joins in every once. So sorry, John, I didn't recognize you with the face mask on. We're gonna post a link to the Whiskey Acres website on an announcement on the Fox Valley Whiskey Society group page. So that's the first thing that pops up. So please donate, buy a T-shirt. Make sure to go to Whiskey Acres tomorrow and Friday and Saturday and every day that they're open.
Not Friday, just tomorrow.
Just tomorrow.
Tomorrow is our only. We're
make sure the line is all the way down Kesslinger Road. Make sure it's all the way.
We'll do it again, but right now it's just tomorrow.
Okay. So make sure you guys stop by, and you guys are Whiskey Acres is it's our hometown distillery. Even though you guys are out in DeKalb, we're here in the Fox Valley. You guys are just a short, I don't know, like 20-minute drive west of us, right down what is it, Kesslinger
I live
Road?
In Wheaton, so I drive.
And you live in Wheaton, yeah. You have an even farther drive. But for those of you who have not had it yet and aren't able to make it, you can go to Benny's, you can go to Woodman's, you can go to Crown Liquor, pretty much anywhere bourbon is sold.
Coming soon. But right now,
there's one coming my way, Nick. I hope there's one coming my way. But this is the bourbon. This is what you look out for. They also have a rye and a vodka, which are also phenomenal. So make sure to support your local craft distilleries, because those are the ones that are that are really looking for the support right now. Nick, thank you so much for coming on. I'm going to end the broadcast. Everybody, John, Mark, all of our viewers out there, thank you so much for joining us. And we will see you guys on Friday when we talk with the Master Blender over at MGP. And next Wednesday, we've got Mike and Matt Blom from the Blom Brothers. So that should be a fun one. Everybody, good night and cheers.
Cheers.